I'd like to welcome everybody today to our Career Center How I Made It event, Careers Working with Animals. Thank you so much for showing up, and hopefully we'll have a few more students come in during the session and join us. I'd really like to thank our panelists for coming in today, for taking time out from their busy schedules to join us. We're still waiting for one more, and hopefully Dawn Nelson will come from Hearts Therapeutic, but if not, we have a wonderful panel here already today that I hope you will come away with some really good information about occupations, working with animals, the different opportunities and options you might have, and we're going to have a wonderful program today. I'm really excited about it. First, I'd like to know how many of you have been to the Career Center before, show of hands? A few of you, great. I'd like to introduce to you Val Yerman, who's sitting in the front seat over here. She's one of our career counselors if you haven't been in. We'd love to have you stop in and talk about careers or jobs or majors, anything related to what we talk about today. And we're just drop-in, so you can come and see us anytime. Like I said, we'd love to have you come and check out what we have to offer while you're here at Santa Barbara City College. We think that when we have this event, it's supposed to rain, because the last time we tried to put it into place, maybe some of you remember this, we had to cancel it back in March. And we had the rainstorm when we had to evacuate again for the second time, or third time, or fourth time, I don't know. And some of these folks were really busy because they had to shelter animals and things like that, and I'm sure we'll hear some stories today about what that looked like. But we're really grateful today, again, like I said, for these folks here. They have a wide breadth of experience and life experience, as well as work experience, to be able to share with you. Today what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce each one of them to you. Some of them have a couple of video things to look at. And then I'm going to ask them questions, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. So if you have some questions, please hold on to them, and we'll have a Q&A, like I said, at the end. Okay? So to start with, I'm going to introduce each of our speakers here. And I'm actually going to go alphabetically, because that's what I have on my list here, so I won't mess it up. We have Elaine Ibarra, who's on the very left over there. She's a director of animal care at Santa Barbara Wildlife Care Network, and they've been at our job fairs a few times. They are always looking for volunteers, particularly, as I recall, there are a lot of birds to feed.
Lots.
24/7. So if you have any interest in volunteering with animals, well, maybe it would work for many of these places, but I'll put a plug in for you first. Elaine is the mother of two amazing children. She went to Cal State Channel Islands, and she got her Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry. And she's been full-time at the Wildlife Care Network since 2012. She has a lot of interesting volunteer experience, which I hope you will share with us today. And she's also a trained oil responder. Would love to hear about that as well, because I just think that would be of interest to many people here. I think after I introduce all of you, we'll do some video, okay? So I'll have you do your video. She has a great video for us. We have Marianne Lascala, actually, right next to her. She's the owner of Camp Canine Training Center, which the name is very descriptive of what it is. It's been in town since 1984. She has over 30 years experience raising and training dogs, and created a curriculum, actually, that they use in their facility. She got interested as a young child in animals because of her brother. She ended up training a red-tailed hawk, and she got into the art of falconry. So that'll be an interesting topic to hear about today, too. She grew as the business did. She's an entrepreneur, so we'll be able to hear the business entrepreneur side of how to be successful in Santa Barbara, no less, with working with animals. And I have a question for her. With the time and energy, first I want to say her facility is actually like a doggy spa, where they can stay overnight, right, and or for the day. So my question is, with the time and energy it takes to run a business, do you ever get to go to a spa yourself and get a vacation?
Rarely.
To my left here is Claire Lofthouse. She's a volunteer and outreach coordinator for the Santa Barbara Humane Society. And prior to that position, she was doing PR and events for the Humane Society here in Santa Barbara. So she also has a breadth of knowledge in a different area, and as I recall, you are an English major.
Yes.
Right? So a lot of times we have students come in and ask, what should I major in if I want to work with animals? And guess what? You can be an English major and still work with animals. And we'll find out what the other backgrounds are from these folks and their advice for you. But just to let you know that the world is kind of your oyster at this stage in your life while you're figuring things out. She describes herself as a serial AA degree earner from Santa Barbara City College, so she's very comfortable here. She graduated with a BA in English, like I said, but from UCSB, which I didn't say. She's been in the animal welfare field since July of 2016. Important to know, she believes that being either a dog person or a cat person is a false dichotomy. And she has a large rescue dog, Jessie, and 2 rescue kittens, River and Trickle, and she has her little buddy, Jessie, or big buddy, Jessie, here today. Last but not least, we have Nashawn Sarkeesian. He's a doctor of veterinarian medicine, and he works with vets here, which is a mobile vet facility. So they don't have an office here, but they actually go out and about and take care of the animals in a mobile fashion. He joined the practice in 2018, relatively new as a full-time vet here in the Santa Barbara area. He graduated from Cal State LA at the age of 19 and did something a little bit different, I think, than some folks do if they want to go to vet school. You think maybe you just have to go straight through. He's going to tell us a story that actually you don't have to. He earned his vet degree in medicine. He earned his degree in veterinary medicine before moving back to the U.S. to complete a large animal internship at the University of Tennessee. And what you don't know is he did a lot of traveling between Cal State LA and then going to vet school. Is that true? Mm-hmm. Yes. He works in both small and large animal emergency medicine and holds a special interest in, and you get to guess what this is, camelid and ruminant medicine. Did I say camelid right?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I had to look it up. But the first part of that word gives you the clue. It has the word camel in it. And also honeybee medicine. He has 2 rescue cats, Huki and Chanchis, that were rescued from South America. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Elaine, to start with your PowerPoint.
Perfect. Should I stand? Okay.
Yeah, you can just do it right from there.
Okay, cool. All right, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Elaine, and I am with the Santa Barbara Wildlife Care Network. And so we do about 3,500 animals a year. So it's marine mammals, adult deer, wild boar, bear, and mountain lions. We take everything else. So we mostly do birds, but we, again, do take in small mammals. We actually seriously did rehabilitate this Pacific seahorse found in Carp and this northwestern salamander. We get one pretty much every Christmas that comes down from Oregon on a Christmas tree. True. So not only do we rehabilitate, we focus a lot on education and exclusions. So education is more obvious, right? We talk to people on the phones all the time. And exclusion has to do with when a person has a wild animal living somewhere on their property and they don't want them. Rather than having the animal trapped and killed, we talk to them about the draw for the animal, so what resources that person providing, and talk to them about how they can eliminate that so that the animal will move on their own. So that's a really important part of what we do. Mostly birds, aquatic birds, the baby crow, who's just, they're always like that. If you ever have a chance to work with crows, they're really fun. Oops, too many. And babies in all shapes and sizes. So this is, oops, wrong one. That is 2 hatchling crows. They're about 2 days old. And that is a 2-week-old hummingbird. Wow. So we get them in all the time. And, it's going too fast. And then the mammals. So everything from mice, squirrels, chipmunks, opossums, skunks. We did a badger this year. It was the first time we've had a badger. He was so amazing and a little scary. Also, and then the bobcat, and then of course raccoons. We've got a lot of raccoons. Certain of these animals will require pre-exposure rabies vaccinations to work with them, but we do have some volunteers who have those, especially for considering going into more wildlife fields. It's a possibility. Okay, so for me, one of the most important reasons why I do the job is for the anthropogenic sources of injury. Fishing line, car strikes. A lot of people don't consider cats to be an anthropogenic, a human problem, but if you have a pet cat and he's out there killing things, for us, that's a problem. Window strikes, bird netting, things like that. Okay. And so I did respond at the Refugio event. That was my first spill. This is my first pelican. They were all more than 100% covered, so in the ears, inside the pouches, we had to flush the eyes. All 11 of my birds made it and were released, so that's awesome. So the Oil Wildlife Care Network we are a member organization of the OWCN. If you want to do oil spill response, you have to volunteer with a member organization. So we can talk about that at some point if you like. But the OWCN is the only organization in the world that responds to oil spills with a focus on wildlife. So it's very unique. They work internationally. Why does that do that? So this is my truck. And I'm always putting out the appeal, like she said, we look for volunteers year-round, and you don't necessarily have to want to work with animals, but we always need help transporting animals. That was the day I was taking birds to Ojai Raptor Center, transporting other animals to another rehabber, home rehabber in Ventura, and then everybody else was going to International Bird Rescue in San Pedro, so that's a 3-hour drive. So we're always trying to put out the call there. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I also want to not forget to welcome those who have live streamed in. I wanted to make sure to not forget to say hello to all of you too. So I would like to move on to a quick video too from Claire, who put together her own video. She actually has one online that's gone viral, but she made a different one. So here's her video.
So threw that together this morning, so we try to get the most content out there, especially with social media, so sometimes production quality goes down in return for telling the story as soon as possible, because especially in animal welfare, when you're trying to get dogs and cats into homes as quickly as possible, you want to get their picture online out there to people and have it be real and, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit blurry. We just want people to get the feel for that animal and come on in and perhaps adopt. So that's what I do as of a month ago, and that now I'm volunteer and outreach coordinator. So I'm rapidly exploring the whole field. So yeah, I can answer all types of questions.
Would you explain the difference between the two different positions that
Yeah.
you had and now have?
Yeah, so PR and events, as you can tell, I was doing planning events, helping coordinate at other people's events. Hey. And writing press releases, writing articles to be published. And if you want something published, the best way to do it is to write it for the journalist. Make their job very easy. But on the day-to-day, mostly I was walking around, walking dogs, petting cats, trying to get those shots of their personalities. Jessie, you're silly. So it's very fun. It's super fun. You're just being silly most of the time trying to tell these stories.
Thanks. Yeah. We'll come back to some more questions, but for now I'd like to have Nashawn, Dr. Sarkeesian, share with us a little bit about his practice, and he has a video that he would like to show as well, just real quick, and we can look at that now.
Sure.
This is the company that he works for.
Yeah, this is the company I work for. It's a short video that they made not too long ago, but just so you can get an idea of what it is that we do.
I saw the opportunity to make a different experience happen for clients and events. I think that we have brought back that house call model that people crave, of that intimacy with the doctor. We'll go up and knock on the door, have a quick conversation about what's best for the animal, what we need to prescribe on the truck, perform any procedures if we decide that they need to be done, such as x-rays. I find veterinarians who love what they do and they're able to give that energy to the client and to their pet. That's the vet that works for us here. Let's make medical care something positive. We can deliver that to someone's driveway. They're part of our family, and I get to be the healthcare provider for a member of somebody's family. And then I get to come home and experience that bond myself.
So that's just a nice way for y'all to see what we do. Since I don't have the truck here with me, that's just a really big part of explaining to people what I do, because I don't work in the most orthodox setting as far as veterinary clinics go. So anyway, we have a large
This is Charlie.
I don't know what happened.
He was just born.
Oops.
These are his
Sorry.
parents, Jenny and Greg.
Is that on your website too?
I don't know what that is, but anyway. But now we know about Charlie. So, sorry. Anyway, yeah, I'm a veterinarian. I work like I said, at a practice that's not very typical. Most veterinary practices are kind of standalone clinics, in a building. So there's obviously a lot of differences between a traditional clinic and the one I work in, but the idea here is to talk about careers with animals, and as a veterinarian, what I do. And at the end of the day, medicine is medicine. So what I do on that clinic is really no different to what you would do in a normal clinic. Just you have to think on your feet a little bit differently. But yeah, I just as a short kind of synopsis about how I got into veterinary medicine. I did not follow a traditional path. Again, pros and cons to both sides of the story. I never applied to vet school in the United States. I did my undergrad and then worked in random jobs for about 2 years, 3 years before I set off to South America to teach. I just saw an opportunity to teach in Bolivia, a country that I had visited before and I loved, so I decided to go there. While I was there, I met my wife. We moved to Peru for her job, and then when I was there, it suddenly dawned upon me that I wanted to study veterinary medicine. I looked at how to get licensed in the United States, what exams I would have to take, and did a lot of research, and then I just studied down there. And in 2016, I took several exams to get licensed in the States, and then got a job that was almost as untraditional in the way it is run as my education had been. So, but I feel very blessed because I think it worked out really well, and it's awesome to work in a mobile veterinary practice. Now, there are mobile veterinary practices in other parts of the country. Typically they're in more rural settings, and typically they're more oriented towards large animals. When I say large animal, I mean like what you would think of as a farm animal: horses, cows, sheep, goats, llamas, alpacas. But we are a mobile mixed practice, which means that I see dogs and cats every day, but I also see all those other species that we're talking about. So what else can I say about that? Yeah, and the fact that I didn't follow the traditional path, like as had been mentioned, has not impeded me. In fact, I'm very happy that I did it that way. But there's certainly pros and cons to doing things the traditional way, in American vet schools versus other. But anyway, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Marianne, I'd love to hear from you and hear about your business, how you got into it, and what it is that you actually do for our community here.
Well, the company was started by my brother and sister-in-law in 1984, so we're going on 35 years of service to the dog-loving community here. And both my brother and his wife are they're animal enthusiasts, which is how the family business got started, from their passion. And interestingly, some of you are pretty young, but you may remember when kennels were all like a single run with a single dog in it. That's just the way it was all over the country. And then the idea of having dogs be together in small groups was brand new about 20 years ago. And we actually advanced that idea. My sister Mary was one of the leaders in that whole idea of having dogs in playgroups and doggy daycare. So the business has grown over the years, and I got involved about 12 years ago with focusing on the training. That's my passion, because I love communication. And one of the things I think is important, no matter what your area of expertise is, I think it's really important to really it's really all about the customer, so you're all about the people. Whether you're doing aerospace or cats and dogs, you've got a product, but it's about the client. So we try to focus on having our clients be surprised and delighted with the services that we provide. And we are always trying to advance the knowledge as well. So we have a unique training program that we've developed that produces that result where people are really being excited about the results that they get in a very short amount of time. So that's the most fun for me.
That's great.
Is having people be super excited about what they see their dog doing that they didn't expect that he or she would be able to do. That's the most satisfying piece.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. Elaine, we know what area of working with animals, the area that you work in with animals. Can you tell us a little bit about your education and career path and how you got to where you are, what you're doing today?
Okay. So as you said earlier, my degree's in chemistry, but I started at the university in 1986. I didn't graduate until 2011. So I did a lot of different things in between. I had a family. I did dog obedience for 15 years in high-end boarding facilities and group lessons, Parks and Rec. I did all that. I knew from pretty young that I didn't want to be a vet, but everything that drew me in had to do with animals, and the chemistry thing also just kind of happened. So I was well suited to the path, and I was going to do instrumentation. I could have made a lot of money, just wasn't for me. So while I was in school, I was volunteering at the time with CIMWI, which is the Channel Islands Marine and Wildlife Institute, and they rehabilitate marine mammals in Santa Barbara and Ventura County. So that's how I discovered rehab, volunteering. And as you guys go through your, different paths, if you're interested in checking something out and you have the opportunity to volunteer, try it. That's the best way to just jump in. You really do get immersed, and you can experience something that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. So I started with CIMWI, and most rehabilitators kind of know each other, especially in California, and then especially within the same counties. The position for seasonal animal care became available in 2012, so I applied, and CIMWI recommended me for the job, so I got it. At the end of the season, they kept me, and just as of September 1st, I became the director.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So just working, attending conferences, I do at least 3 symposia a year, and just try to increase the level of care that we can provide, because rehab's kind of new. I mean, people have been taking baby birds in as long as there have been people and birds. But to do it in more of a clinical way, to talk to other rehabbers, to involve veterinarians, and really get the information so that it's more like a hospital than oh, he's so cute, I'm going to keep him in a box in my garage. Trying to get away from the original way that people rehabbed and trying to make it a little bit more modern. So that's really my goal. Was that?
So my question is, the organization that you work with is a nonprofit, right?
Yes.
So how does it support itself?
Mostly donations. We do apply for several grants every year, but yeah, it's almost entirely donations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Marianne, your education and career path prior to joining, what's your background before you came into the business with your brother?
Well, I have a very non-traditional.
It's a theme here.
Yeah. One of the things that as I was thinking about, what to share, what would make a difference for people that are looking, I think it's really, really important to follow your heart, really listen to that inner voice so that you end up doing something that you love. So right out of high school, I got a 4-year full music scholarship, and I didn't go. And I gave it up because I knew really in a deep way that I was not a musician. I could play the piano really well, which is what got me the scholarship, but I loved the language of music, the mathematics of music. And so that was a real crisis and a turning point for me. My parents were not happy about that, right? So interestingly, as you follow your path, if you're really listening to that inner voice and following where your heart is taking you, you can trust that. Because we're still, in the work that I do now, I still get to do the very same thing. I get to be involved with communication and language, only now we're interpreting the cross-species communication between humans and canines, right? So one of the things that gets people into trouble with their dogs is that they naturally communicate from their default method, which is verbal. Humans have verbal language as a default method of communication. And so what your dog hears is, want, Bosco. And we can't help it. When we say something, we expect it's going to land over there like a communication. So what we teach people is how to communicate dog to dog. Your dog can't come up to have a human-to-human communication, but you can come down and learn how to have a dog-to-dog communication. And when you can do that, all of a sudden you have the experience of your dog saying, well, why didn't somebody just say so? So that interest in communication has really been the thread in my life as an entrepreneur. What I already mentioned about music, in trying to understand every dog that shows up on our front doorstep, right? we know as soon as somebody calls us that there's a communication issue there that we have to discover and decipher, and then enroll people in something new that's going to make a difference. And that's really the challenge and the puzzle that I love. So I would say, see if you can pay attention to what is it that you can't not do. Whatever that is, check that out, because that's a driver that's coming from deep inside you. And that'll point you in the right direction every time.
You could be a career counselor. That's a lot of what we say in the career counseling area is it's really important to listen. If you don't, you'll find out later that you haven't.
Well, I think
You know?
that, Steve Jobs has a great quote about, work and doing work you love. If you do work you love, you have the possibility and the opportunity to do great work.
Yeah.
And it's really true. It's just really, it's like great advice.
So, Nashawn, do you have anything else that you'd like to share about your education and career path, some filler maybe from what you shared before?
I got out of turn there. Actually, related to what was just said, it's funny, that struck a chord in me, what you just said. When I was younger, I think 15 or so, I remember and this is something that kind of was a momentous experience for me. And two different occasions. The first one was my Jack Russell Terrier that I had. I went out one night to bring her in and called her and she wouldn't come, which is weird for her. And I went out looking for her and I found her lying down in a ditch in the yard and she was bleeding. And she had been attacked by some animal. My parents lived up in the foothills of near Los Angeles, and we have a lot of coyotes, we have bobcats. And she just had terrible lesions all along her neck, and I'm not going to be more descriptive than that, but it was, of course, it was like the night before a holiday, and it was like probably around midnight when this happened, of course. And I took it upon myself to try to mend her wounds, and put her on the little kitchen island, cleaned her up, and I remember using a little topical local anesthetic that I had for myself, for my own cuts and abrasions, and got some nylon out of my mom's kit, bent a needle over a flame, and little by little sutured her up, and she was an awesome patient. I wouldn't recommend that, but this is what I did. And then I found some amoxicillin in a bathroom cabinet from some time when we had to take antibiotics, calculated her dose out, split the little capsules into powder, divided it all up, put them in little, cream cheese balls, and she did amazing on antibiotics and on her own. And all I did was facilitate her healing. I didn't heal her. And my parents at that time would basically yell in my ears, "Be a veterinarian, you should do this." And I had another experience similar with a Labrador mix that I had that tore out his sutures after a big surgery he had had. Again, sutured him up again. And it worked out just fine. And my mom and dad would always tell me, "You should do this." And I was just belligerent. I said, "No, this is not, veterinary medicine is filled with sadness and death." And that's true, it is, just like medicine in general. But I just wouldn't listen to them. But I loved what I had been able to do for my dogs. And I always had the idea that I would do something else, very similar to your music. I had I thought I was going to become an evolutionary biologist and apply to a PhD. And it wasn't until I grew up a little bit and I was already living in South America doing something completely different that it dawned upon me that this is what I wanted, that I had a calling for this. It's not that I was good at it or anything. I had just had those experiences and some others, but I really found so much fulfillment in having been able to do that for my dogs. And anyway, so it filled me with something. And that is when I realized, oh my gosh, my parents were right, which is really hard to say, really hard, especially after several years of just adamantly saying, no, you have no idea what you're talking about. But they were right, because they knew me better than I knew myself at that time, which I think is a parent's role. So and so that's when I started looking for programs where, under my circumstances, I was already living in South America. They weren't perfectly ideal circumstances. I knew that it was going to be hard to get licensed in the United States again and everything, but you go through one hurdle at a time, and here I am. So, but yeah, very much in line with what was just said. Something that really fills you with passion. Something that's a vocation for you. It doesn't matter if you choose a career that I don't know, is full of glitz and glamour. If you're not if you don't like what you're doing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how many benefits you have. If you're not happy with what you're doing, so go for something that really fills you with a sense of pride and most importantly, meaningfulness.
Thank you. That's very inspirational. Claire, talk a little bit about why is the Humane Society there? If I show up, what would I see? And a little bit about how you ended up there, your career path as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just build off of everyone and then
Perfect.
I'll switch gears. When I was thinking about coming here and sharing, as an alumni, I'm like, oh, this is like my chance to like speak to my past self, and tell me, stop stressing so much about the future, because there's no way to know what path you're gonna take. I had no idea. I started volunteering at the Santa Barbara Humane Society. I participated in our emergency rescue and response team. So the Sherpa fire, I was up on a mountain driving along a dirt path in a pickup truck with a horse trailer behind me to go and evacuate a horse. And I'm like, this is really fun. Not for everyone, but it was really fun. And then an opportunity opened up to work in reception at the Santa Barbara Humane Society, answering phones. We do cremations for the public, so people bringing in their deceased animals, and we can return them to them in a memorial box, and helping people go through the sad process of relinquishing their animals, and helping people go through the happy process of adopting their new family member. And I was like, well, I don't really want to be a receptionist forever, obviously, but I was a junior at UCSB at the time, and so I spent the next year working full-time and going to school full-time. And as an English major, I graduated June 6th on a Sunday, and on Monday I started in my new position as PR and events coordinator. And it happened because I had volunteered, and then I had worked full-time in a position that wasn't really my end goal, and just got that experience. And so, if I were to sign up for volunteering and be like, okay, I'm gonna volunteer, I'm gonna work reception, I'm gonna do this position, there's no way I would have known how much I would have liked it. It was just an opportunity, and I liked animals, so I took it. And I think that goes back to what you said about what can you not do. I was drawn to animals, and I found a way to work with them, and grew into the path that I was meant to take. So, so stop stressing.
Good advice.
And then the Humane Society. We're the third oldest Humane Society in California. We were founded in 1887, same year that they turned on the electricity in Santa Barbara. And the railroad came here, so big year. We are most known for adoptions and a place to take your animals if for some reason you can't care for them anymore. But we also have a low-cost veterinary clinic. We do low-cost spays and neuters and vaccines, but people still need to take their dogs to a regular vet for their health evaluations and everything. So we've got limited services. We also have dog obedience training there. We just try to be across the board any way we can help keep an animal in a home before taking them in. We try to provide those services. So that's what we do. And we have the emergency response team, which is very active here with all these fires.
Everybody's getting a lot of practice.
Yeah. As an emergency sound goes off.
Yeah. Thought that happened earlier this morning. Yeah. Claire, you're still on the hot seat. What do you like most about your job and like least about your job? I mean, you haven't been in your job very long, but just in general,
Yeah.
where you are.
What I like most is the creativity. Like, no day is exactly similar, especially with the PR and events role. Like last week, we were having cats jump into a cardboard box with like the football team that was playing next in each. So they had two choices, and whoever the cat decided would win, and it was like Thursday night football or something. So like that's the sort of things I do at work. So that is extremely fun. Probably the hardest thing, and not necessarily the worst, but the hardest thing is that, you know, emotions are always high when it comes to people's animals. So sometimes you see the sad things that happen, but it's always balanced out by, you know, a dog is relinquished, but then they find a new home. So it's kind of like that up and down. So yeah, you definitely, if I were to tell someone to thinking about coming into animal welfare, and really any animal related, I think all of us have seen heartaches and hard times, but you do have to think about your mental health and what you can like cope with, and, you know, think of yourself and have that self-care, because, you know, if you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to show up at work every day and like do good things for the animals. So
Great advice. Nashawn, what about you? What do you like the most and the least?
I think that there's a big list on what I like the most, but I'll try to focus on like 2 or 3. What I really like about this job in particular, now not just veterinary medicine, but this job, being a mobile vet, is kind of along the same lines, just as a diversity of the things I get to do and see and work with. I mean, in my first 3 months of the job, I worked, of course, with a lot of dogs and cats and had some amazing cases, but, you know, one day I get a call and it's a gecko with a swollen eye, and the next day I get a chicken that was attacked by a raccoon or something, so I just had to put 21 sutures in a chicken. I also worked with a python extensively that had gotten stuck in its enclosure and had pulled a bunch of skin off, and we were like working on that wound, and we'd put sutures, and I mean, working with another doctor at the practice, you know, anesthetizing a snake is, you know, not exactly the same as anesthetizing a dog or cat, so there's a lot of diversity in my everyday work, not to mention all the other species I get to see. So thinking on the fly while I get to do that, it keeps everything's really, really interesting. Being in a mobile practice, you really have to think on the fly. You do as a vet anyway, but in a mobile practice, it's a little different. Another thing I love, obviously, is being around animals. I've just always loved animals. But not loving animals is not enough to be a veterinarian, because if you love animals but you don't like medicine that much, what's the point? So medicine, to me, is what is most fascinating and what I'm most passionate about. Add to that I get to play with animals, and that's wonderful. But medicine, I think, across the board, whether it's human or animal, medicine's medicine. So if you have a passion for that and you think that health is amazingly interesting, you know, then you like animals and you have compassion for animals, that's a good combination for being a vet. So yeah, I love the diversity and I love the animals, obviously. As far as things what I don't like, believe it or not, it's not the euthanasias, because that's another thing that I'm very thankful we actually can do. I think being able to provide the service of euthanasia, and I do a lot of them because I go to homes, I think is a gift both to us and to the animals that we have that capability, because you end a lot of suffering and alleviate a lot of pain for everybody involved. Actually, the thing I don't like is when there's a case that I can't help. Oftentimes, I'll get something that's very severely debilitated or severely sick, and the owners didn't notice, or it was just hidden under the surface. And I sometimes will go, I was just talking about this earlier with one of the panelists, I'll go to a home to see a dog or a cat or whatever animal for one complaint, something that's seemingly mild, and on that visit I find something else, and having to tell the owner, oh gosh, I think you need to do this, or I think this is what's going on. This other thing you called me about is secondary right now. Let's deal with this first. And sometimes that's not easy for the owner. Sometimes the owner is just quiet, and they're trying to process everything I just said. And having to make that call and tell them, I believe that this is what's going on, let's do some further diagnostics. And then when the result is that it's something terminal, something that I could do nothing about, and even a referral facility can't do anything about, that's probably the part I like least about the job, is having to tell the owner that, and having them process it in front of me. And you never know how they're going to react to it. You know, they're not going to get angry at me, but being in a room with a family of a patient and having them hear that news come from your mouth is never a pleasant thing, but it's part of the job. But that's probably my least favorite.
Thank you. Well, we've got you on the hot seat. Can you talk about vet school a little bit?
Oh yeah, I guess we have to do that too, huh? Yeah. So vet school, like I said, if I pause a lot, it's because I'm trying to organize my thought. I'm not as eloquent, and I don't have as good of a command of the English language as the people around me. I stutter. Surprisingly, I was born in this country, but still, I can't speak English. So vet school, yes. Again, mine was non-traditional. However, I came back to the United States with my wife, and I went straight to an internship at the University of Tennessee in large animal medicine and surgery. This was all of 2017, 2018, up until a few months ago. So at that job, I got to work with American fourth-year veterinary students. They were on their clinical year, which is the last year, and I was one of the doctors at the hospital. So I got to see both sides of the spectrum, which was very enlightening. I loved it. Vet school is tough. It's not for everybody. You certainly do have to be certainly have to have some academic inclination. But I knew the vet students that I worked with at the University of Tennessee were all over the spectrum. There were people of all kinds of academic abilities and gifts and talents. I think what they all had in common at their core was a fascination with medicine and also a deep love of and compassion for animals. Like I said, those are your two basic requirements. But yeah, vet school is definitely a challenge to get through. And you do have, after your 4 years, if you're to study in the United States, you have to go through board examinations to get licensed, and then board examinations sometimes to get licensed in the state. So it's just hoop after hoop that you have to jump through. So that does make it tough, and it's very discouraging. Especially right now in your seats, if you are planning to be or would like to be a vet, if you look at it as one daunting mountain that you have to get over. But it's not that bad. You take things one step at a time. You're not going to take all your board exams today. You're not going to have to take all your final exams and all your courses today. It's, one day at a time. So certainly if you have those two ingredients to become a vet, you can all do it. And it is a wonderfully rewarding career. I was going to say something else, and now it just disappeared from my head. But
I'll ask you a question while you're thinking about it. What's the difference between a vet and a vet tech?
Okay, so a vet tech, and there is some legislation going on in different parts of the country to change the word vet, the word tech to nurse, because that is more akin to what they actually do. They are veterinary nurses. A tech is involved in patient care down to the most. I guess in the greatest detail, I guess you could put. They're the ones who are constantly dealing with the patient, constantly medicating, taking vitals when during hospitalization, doing all the treatments, and so they're very much like a nurse, or they are a nurse except with animals. That's really the best definition I can give of a tech. Techs do so many things, and they're so important in veterinary medicine. Whereas the veterinarian. The veterinarian is the only one who can legally diagnose diseases, prescribe medications, and do surgery, so anything invasive. That's the basic difference. The veterinarian can also do the things the tech does. It's very much like a doctor and nurse dynamic in human medicine. But the tech support is crucial in any veterinary clinic. And so that's another career that is a very viable option if you love working with animals and don't want to go through all of that academic pressure, although you do have to get certified, but you don't have to do 4 years of vet school and possibly residency, internship. Being a tech is also a very, very rewarding career. You get to be on the front lines, as it were, of animal health care. Like I said, they're the ones that have their hands on the animal most of the time, after the doctor has diagnosed, after the doctor has prescribed, or after the doctor has done their surgery. So it's also another very good option. And sometimes I envy the techs that work with me because they get to do a lot more of the fun stuff, and I have to do all the paperwork. So, yeah.
Thank you for your eloquent response. Marianne, what do you like most or least about your work?
Most and least.
Yeah. Besides the fact you don't get to go to spas all the time yourself.
Well, one of the things I love is creating curricula for people. Because one of the things that makes a trainer really effective is you have this whole body of knowledge, right, that you can draw on any part of it at any moment with any given animal, or any given dog. And so when we're teaching people about their dog and what to do, we have to, and my job is to figure out how to communicate. There's that thing that I love, that's central to every conversation that I have. How do I share, which piece of the puzzle does this client need that will make the biggest impact with their unique breed, the age of their dog, to get the result which we're looking for, which is a client who's surprised and delighted with the result. So there's a puzzle there, and I love trying to figure that out so that they actually get the result that they're looking for. And it's a real rewarding thing to do. And it starts right at the initial phone call. So frequently when we get a call from somebody that has an issue, a training issue, they're kind of just wondering, is it even possible to do this? And kind of in the background is, I don't think so, but I'm going to give it a try. And at the end of the conversation, I take a lot of time with everybody who calls. And I love it when they say, wow, I feel better already. Like I have hope that this can be accomplished. And that's really a fulfilling experience, which I get to have every day. And we started years ago doing problem solving, mostly because those were the phone calls that we got. I have a dog with a behavior issue. And those dogs are frequently, adolescents, young adults, sometimes even, full adult dogs. And now our focus is on the puppies so that we can avoid those problems. So my clients actually pay me to play with their puppies. It's the best. Like roll around on the floor and teach them all the beginning, little techniques that they're learning. When I find myself doing that, I'm like, oh my God, they're paying me to do this. It's great. So it's really, really fun. The thing that I don't like, or that the biggest challenge, it's something that has to be done. Being an entrepreneur, you're responsible for the whole McGillicuddy, right? The whole thing, the whole pie. So some days I get in to work and the first thing that I have to do is a computer that won't turn on. And I'm spending my first hour and a half on the phone with Apple, right? And on those days, it seems like that just kind of snowballs. So the challenge of being an entrepreneur is very rewarding. You get to actually look and see what's going to make a difference for the entire business today. And it's actually possible for all that stuff to take up your entire day, and there's nothing left for clients and training and the actual product. So it's a dance, keeping all those plates spinning. But it's been something that I've been doing since I was, in my early 20s, and I must love it because I'm still doing it.
Thank you, that was great.
Yeah.
I love hearing about the business aspect and managing all of that with the other part.
It's a real challenge. It's very rewarding, very rewarding, and very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think any entrepreneurial endeavor would bring that about anyway, no matter what field you're in.
Yeah, and actually, I want to make sure everybody knows about the Women's Economic Venture here in Santa Barbara, Weave. They are a phenomenal resource that I just heard about this year. And they're on their 27th year. I was like, how come I haven't heard of you guys before? They have some amazing programs for men and women. The classes are primarily women. And they have a couple of different levels of courses. And the very first one is great. It's like, so you think you want to be an entrepreneur? Okay, come check it out. I think they said 85% of the people who take that course, when they get to the end, they go, never mind. Because they realize how much work it is. So it's a great educational program, and they have low interest funding for startups. So it's a great resource here in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Elaine, what about you? What do you like most and least about your work?
It's interesting how similar we are here. I have a moment every day where I cannot believe they're paying me to do this. Whether it's getting a baby bunny to eat formula for the first time, or just even if I'm just cleaning the raccoon enclosure, just trying to not let them know that I'm paying attention, because we don't want to interact that way. They're wild. We want them to remain wild. But, just watching them wrestle and the little sounds that they make and things like that. I mean, there's just so much cuteness in what I see every day. Also, I love the fact that I never know what's going to come through the door. Literally, don't know what's going to fall out of the sky. There's new species all the time, or something that I haven't seen in several years, and there's just no predictability about it, and I really love that. And again, just the continued education that it requires. Networking with other rehabilitators throughout the state and now across the country. And rehabbers tend to be very generous with their information. There's not a lot of like competitiveness to it. Everybody just wants the animals to live, and hey, have you tried this? That works really well, or I just figured this out. That kind of sharing is really common. So, I mean, there's just so much about the job that I really do love. And the people that I work with, we're all animal people, not people. But they're, the people who are drawn to it are just amazing. We're all just really great people, I think. Something that I wanted to also touch on that you said, and I really thank you for talking about the euthanasia thing, because in rehab, we don't deal with animals who find comfort from people. We don't get to cuddle with our animals. We don't, you make the eye contact and you smile, and all they see is big front-facing eyes and teeth. Like, I'm gonna eat you, right? So we have to handle them a lot differently. And when it comes to their long-term prognosis, if it's not good, it's not right for that animal to be in care for the rest of its life and in terror of being eaten. So we do euthanize quite a bit. And I kind of feel the same way. Like, I always hesitate. I struggle with it every single time I make that call, but I believe in it, and it's the gift of peace. So while that's hard, like I said, thank you for saying that, because it's something that's really hard for people who aren't in the business to understand that it is really a gift. The hardest part is sometimes on days it just seems to pile up. So most of our animals we get are in a box or a crate, something like that. You open up that box and it's like, oh, wow. Sometimes the trauma that we see is severe, and that there's nothing you can do. And for some reason, those animals come to us in clumps, and there will be days when there's nothing but trauma. Or a few years ago, I'm not sure if any of you remember, the domoic acid toxicity that was in the ocean. There were dead birds everywhere, and that year, I looked this up last week, we were 300 individual birds higher on the same day that year than we are now. So it was in all in the course of like 6 weeks, so just flooded with this unusual mortality event. The stress on the staff, the stress on the animals, the public continuing to call and wanting answers that we can't, all we can tell them is the science behind why it's happening, but there aren't good solutions. So that part of it can be really hard, and you can't plan for that. That's not a disaster that you can have a plan for. So the unpredictability is really fun most of the time. And sometimes, it can be more challenging than you want it to be.
Speaking of unpredictability, the holiday fire
Yes.
actually affected the business quite a bit, and I'd love for you to speak to that.
Thank you. So we have the Humane Society to thank quite a lot. We had to evacuate. The holiday fire literally burned up to the perimeter of a facility on all 4 sides and crossed in several places. The night that it happened, we were able to evacuate somewhat, and the Humane Society really generously opened their doors. The next morning, I went back to get everybody else out of there. We were able to get out more than 250 animals, all of whom went to the Humane Society. And we've kind of evacuated a few times. Sherpa, the one after that, I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now, but there was another fire that came within 6 miles of us, and so we partially evacuated because we knew it was coming, but the holiday fire started across the street. So there was no time. Again, can't plan for everything. And what we did plan for, we had the evacuation plan, and most rehabilitations have the same kind of policy. These are wild animals. You open the doors. And for anybody who can fly, they will fly away. Anybody who can't fly is already contained, so you collect them, etc. None of that worked. So nobody flew away. We had a lot that were really close to being ready to be released anyway. And so, but yeah, nobody flew away. Everybody was still there, but they were hemmed in on all sides. So, that was it was pretty traumatic for a lot of the staff as well. Anyway, so we stayed for 2 months at the Humane Society. And it was wonderful. And we're just moving back. We've been back for about a month, but a lot of our main building for the babies was not really usable, so we packed everything into a pod, which is in the parking lot. I still don't know where the paper clips are. I mean, so that's still kind of in transition. So it's been a very interesting year in a lot of ways. But yeah, that was a huge learning curve there. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that.
They
Go
were
ahead.
in our education center, so there was just this big room, and they don't usually use big rooms with high roofs, but
No. Like
that
this
was
again,
that was what we had. But they were right down the hallway from me, and so I could hear like the chirp, chirp, chirp. You could make like a sleeping CD, like one of those relaxing, calm mixes, just walking through the Wildlife Care Network.
Speaking of some of the traits that you might have to have, such as resilience, it sounds like, and being able to deal with unpredictability, Elaine, what traits are important to have for the work that you do? And all of you get to answer that question too.
So yes, resiliency. You have to be, kind of have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get there. We all work more hours than we should, and because every new species has its own natural history and therefore its own behaviors, there's always a little bit of research involved if it's something that you don't do every day. So you have to be resourceful, you have to be a self-starter, you have to be very independent, but also being able to work as a team. Since we have a lot of seasonal staff as well as our more long-term people, we get people from all different walks of life and backgrounds. But something that's very helpful is when we're talking about the care of these animals, we're able to talk to each other and we come to a consensus so that everybody understands the treatment, everybody agrees on like this is the plan for this animal. So again, being an animal person, you don't always think of yourself as being a team player, but we are, and we're very cohesive that way. So
Thank you. Marianne?
Well, I think when you're communicating with clients and customers and staff, one of the biggest traits and characteristics and skills that makes a huge difference is being able to listen. And that's a funny thing because as a species, you have eyes, ears, we have a huge commitment as a society, even a global society, we have a commitment. We can also, most of us can see, we have a commitment to reading. So there's reading programs, reading is a part of the regular curriculum, and there's after-school reading programs, and there's adult ed remedial reading programs for anybody who can't read, right? And we actually measure reading levels societally and globally. We call that literacy, right? So correspondingly, we have ears and we can hear, but we don't teach listening in schools. There are no listening classes. It's not a part of the regular curriculum when you're growing up. There's no remedial listening programs. There's not even a word for measuring, what would you call it? auditory. I mean, we have literacy. There's no corresponding word for how well do we listen. So it's a real missing from my perspective. And my life experience was I thought I was a pretty good listener. And then in my early 20s, I was doing some psychotherapy because I had a terrible relationship with my dad. And I thought, oh, I thought I knew how to listen. I didn't know anything about listening. So that was my first aha. And later on, I was in marriage counseling. I thought, oh, I really don't know anything about listening. Like, I thought I did, but I didn't. And then I did years of personal growth and development courses, and I thought, wow, I really don't know anything about listening. So this notion that we know how to listen is an illusion, I think. So, really that's a huge skill that could make a major difference in your life because you're talking to people. And can we learn how to listen not from what I'm going to say next? Just take it in and be okay with whatever somebody is saying and get it, and then make sure they got that you got it, what you got. So being able to listen in such a way that they don't know your opinion about what they said, that's a skill. That it takes some training. It takes some self-control, right? To not express your yeah but opinion. And it's when that's the thing I use most when I'm talking to a dog, when I'm talking to a client, when I'm talking to the spouse. And we're teaching behavior modification skills all the time. So if I was going to say one thing, pay attention to one thing, that's it. Learn how to listen. It'll make a huge difference in your life, in your family, with your clients, with your kids, with your spouse, on the job.
And that goes full circle with how you were expressing earlier the importance of communication. because
That's just
a
been my
piece of it.
passion
Yeah.
since I was little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nishan?
Things that are important to become a vet. Before I get into that, I just should say that what you're seeing with me as a general practitioner in a clinic, that's the tip of the iceberg for the profession itself. There are many careers that can come from becoming a veterinarian. And I'm not going to delve into all of it here, but for instance, in government, public health sector, there's a lot of veterinarians working in places like the USDA, the Center for Disease Control, CDC. If you think about all of the diseases over the last several thousands of years that have decimated parts of the human population, whether it be Ebola, bubonic plague, or H1N1, or SARS, or any of those things, all those diseases are shared between humans and whatever species they happen to be for that disease, respectively. A lot of them can come from animal populations. So veterinarians have a really important role to play in public health. So that's just one example, one sector where there's tons of veterinarians working. So not everything you see not every veterinarian is working in the cat and dog clinics that you tend to see when you live in an urban area. Veterinary medicine is just very, very diverse. Having said that, for what I work in, because I can't speak to them, to what they do, I think that clearly you have to have some compassion for animals. You have to have a natural and an innate curiosity for medicine, for the mystery of medicine, because you're oftentimes a detective trying to figure out what's wrong in a patient that can't talk to you. It's almost like being a pediatrician, or a neonatologist. And oftentimes the owner's lying to you. Or they're twisting the truth, rather, not lying to you. They'll omit some information that happens. You have to, and that's where listening comes in. I was trying to listen intently, because listening is really important. Knowing how to listen, and not reacting to the first thing you hear that makes you want to cringe, because sometimes you do hear owners say things that you're like, oh my God, really? But you can't show them that. You have to try to educate them instead of scold, right? So listening is especially important. And that goes hand in hand with interpersonal skills, because being a general practitioner veterinarian, you deal with a lot of owners. And it's a big, for me, it's a fun part of the job, talking to the clients themselves. And since I go to homes, it is often very fun. Because there's like kids running around and they all want to, you saw the video, the kid wants to do use ophthalmoscope on the dog, and it's a lot of fun. So, interpersonal skills is important for a general practice. But I think that you add those all up, and that's great if you're good at all of those things. But for me, above all, the things the one characteristic that I have admired most about veterinarians that I have admired is humility. Unfortunately, in any career, you're going to have people with God complexes. But I think that the ones who like animals, like medicine, are good listeners, have good interpersonal skills, but on top of all that are humble, are the best ones. And they're the ones that I've admired the most. Just as an anecdote, I did get to work extensively at the University of Tennessee with a world-renowned equine surgeon for almost the past year. World-renowned, has written several books on the subject. He's like the guy. And one day we had some clients. There was a horse there, and I can't remember what the issue was, but he was talking to these clients, and he was walking them through a very complex, intricate surgery that only he and 3 other people in the world know how to do, and he trained one of them. He's talking about the anatomy or something or other in that surgery. He says, yeah, we're going to, suture this to the, what's the word for that? What's that called again? And he's this incredible brain, and he himself said, what an idiot, I can't remember, in front of the clients. And that surprised me. It took me by surprise. He said, hold on, I'm just going to go to my office and get something. And he runs up to his office and comes back down and brings a thick textbook on equine surgery, and opens up to this page, the blah, blah, blah. And, he points to the anatomical structure and says the word, that's the one. It's driving me crazy, He puts the book down and keeps talking to the clients, and I go over to the book and I look, and he's the author of the book. So people like that, to me, just blow my mind. So I think humility is super, super important. No matter what your level is, just being humble and knowing when you don't know something and being able to admit that you don't know. Especially in medicine, where pride getting in the way of your decisions could potentially kill something or someone, right? It's important to say, I don't know. Let me get back to you with that, or let's research it. So anyway, those are the kind of 4 characteristics: animals, medicine, interpersonal skills, and humility that are really important for me. That's it.
Beautiful story, thank you. After Claire shares her bit, I'm going to ask any of you if you have some questions. So if you would like to formulate them right now, that would be great. And we'll come back to you in a second. Claire.
Okay. So we're animal people, but especially domesticated animals. Wild animals, not so much, but animals come with their people. So you have to have people skills, or at least be able to tolerate people to work in an animal-related field. So that would be my biggest one that I think people don't think about, is like, hey, if I am doing PR about animals, I still have to be able to hold a conversation. I have to be able to write eloquently. I have to be creative. I have to think of ideas. I have to recognize the moment as it happens. You have to participate in order to get those moments to capture and then share. You can't just hide in your office and be like, no, I work best alone. I'll just write my press release. It doesn't work that way. And animals, you can't force them to do do something cute. You have to just be there and then get that right moment. So definitely being creative, but also excited about the process and potentially, going back and trying again if the dog or cat just doesn't feel like hopping into the box or something. So I think people skills is just my number one, because it's so important. And then for PR, creativity as well. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think another really important thing is to be willing to bring your own self-expression, that thing that you and you alone can bring, right? So no matter what your field is, if you're passionate, if you're doing something you love, you're going to have something to say about it, which is what you're pointing to, right? So it takes courage to do that. And that's one of the reasons why getting into a field that calls to you, that you're being called toward, will really help you be able to be self-expressed in a way that you can actually make a contribution.
Great conclusion. We find sometimes with some of the people that we work with in a career center that people are drawn to multiple things, and so it's confusing. And this is where, if you feel like you are in that struggle or in that place, we can help you define that and create a path that can get you somewhere where you want to go, so you have some place to go toward instead of trying to figure out multiple things all at the same time. So I just want to throw that out there too. Thank you. Questions? You can go ahead and raise your hand, and I'm going to bring you a microphone because we want to be able to record this too. Anybody have a question? What's your name?
I'm Carlin. I know Claire earlier mentioned something about personal health and coping with some of the not so fun things. I was wondering how you guys deal with that, or fatigue in the workplace, and how you kind of motivate yourself through the big mountain of getting to where you want to be.
Should I go first?
You go first.
Okay. I mean, there is no wrong or right answer. It's all to do with the individual. I know in my workplace, there's sometimes, there's just someone's having a bad day, and it's not, we came up with this, this way of supporting each other. When you're having a bad day and you're like, oh, I just want to vent about this, we just try to let that person talk, because we're kind of, they go home, they talk to their families, they don't really understand exactly like what's happening and how stressful some things can be. And we make the conscious effort not to compare war stories or something like that. Like, it's not a competition on who had the worst day. It's just listening and being like, wow, that really sucks. Like, just, come talk to me whenever. But just getting it out to a coworker who understands can really help, but one who's a good listener, and who isn't coming back like, oh yeah, you think that's bad? Like, I had this one client, like, we try not to do that. So that's one particular way of coping, but also just self-care, knowing when you need some space, making sure to unplug on the weekends or something, which is very, very hard, especially in PR. As a social media coordinator, I'm getting those alerts on my phone, so, but just making sure to give yourself space on your days off and to take a step back occasionally.
Yeah, just really quickly, I think that everything she said is right on, and also it's hard to remember yourself, especially when you're immersed in something that you do love doing, and even in the bad moments, you forget about yourself. It's not just about what you're doing, and so I think that an invaluable tool are hobbies. Obviously, that goes hand in hand with sports. So, when I was during my internship at the University of Tennessee, when I was working, 16, 17-hour days, and that was normal, and then I was on call, and I still had to come back at 1 a.m. because of, a camel with diarrhea or something. I was, I had red eye the whole time. I was tired, but we got into rock climbing, while we were there. And that was something that we made ourselves go out. My wife, when I say we, my wife and I, we would make ourselves go out and do, 2 or 3 times a week in that like little 1 hour I had between coming home and being on call. And throughout my life, I've used hobbies to cope with the everyday stresses, whether, it was a musical instrument, or unicycling, or collecting spiders under my bed. Like, I did a lot of weird stuff, but it all got me through it. It's something to distract your mind, and something that you like is really important, I think, for your mental health. Because mental health, I think, is sometimes overlooked, and it's super important.
And
I'm trying to make sure I understood your question. Are you, what I heard you say was like, how do you cope with all of the things that are like obstacles along the way? Is that a way? Yeah, okay. One of the things that has really, that I've learned over the years is that every single obstacle is really an opportunity for something. And so there's a way of training yourself, getting into the practice of, no matter what life is throwing at you, you have the opportunity by virtue of your perspective to turn it into a contribution. It's a way of looking at whatever's coming, you know, multiple things in the morning or multiple things throughout the week. And it's interesting to me, I didn't realize until today that this is called, the name of this was like How I Made It, right? Like, that was funny. Because it raises the question, what is the it we're talking about? Which it? How I made it financially, physically, psychologically, socially, right? So there's lots and lots of pressure, I think especially on young people, to make it. And this is what I taught my kids. They're both graduates now. We actually know how it's going to turn out. We can tell you. You're going to be in the ground, and they're going to be throwing dirt on you. That is how it's going to turn out, right? You don't have to worry about that. So don't be down there saying, woo, thank God I played it safe. Go for it. Go for it. You have a short life. Follow your heart. Follow your passion. Take risks. Be courageous. Don't be afraid to fall down. That's where you learn something, especially if you take all those things as a contribution along the way. And that's what that's what has life be Mr. Toad's wild ride. It's great.
So, everything they just said. Talking to each other at work is a really big bonus for us. We do spend a lot of time talking to each other. It does not only creates clarity within, you know, and cohesion of the team, so we do our best to listen every time. But also, what we do is very different than pretty much anything else. A lot of people think it's like a zoo. It's the opposite of a zoo. We do work very closely with vets all over the place, but we're not vets. So there's a lot of different challenges. Funding is always a challenge. We're always understaffed. So things like that, we understand and can talk to each other, whereas our friends and family don't always understand. It's actually something that I spoke about at a conference about networking for the purposes of supporting each other. At lunch, we can talk to another rehabber about things that you would never speak to your family about over food, right? We understand these things about each other, and we accept these things with each other. And so, and really just having that kind of personal contact with someone who does understand what you're doing, for us, it's been invaluable. And take the time off, turn off your phone. That's the biggest thing, because my friends and family know what I do. If they find an opossum in their backyard, they're calling me at midnight. You know, it's like, it's an opossum, it's okay. It's midnight, it's okay. And just like the social media thing, like I don't have days where I don't get calls about animals who need help. And then I'm director, so I asked for that. But yeah, so turning off the rest of the world, finding something that you can completely let go of work, and then making sure that when you are working, you have somebody to talk to. That would be my...
We are out of time. I feel like we could just keep going on. You all have such wonderful information and advice. And I'd like to take this moment to thank our panelists. I'd like to say please feel free to go, but if you'd like to come up and speak to any of our panelists here, please feel free and ask some questions up front. Thank you.
Thank you.